The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a golden hue over the sprawling campus of Springfield Academy. The towering gates, adorned with the school's emblem, creaked open, ushering in a stream of students. The air carried the scent of freshly cut grass, mingling with the aroma of food wafting from the cafeteria. Excited chatter and the rhythmic shuffle of polished black shoes on stone pavement signaled the start of a new term. Rows of students in navy blue and white uniforms hurried to their respective classes, eager to reclaim their usual spots. The boys wore neatly pressed navy trousers with white short-sleeve shirts, their school badges catching the morning light. The girls, in knee-length navy skirts and crisp white blouses, adjusted their uniforms, ensuring they met the school's strict dress code. Adaora stood among them, an 18-year-old whose presence was impossible to ignore. The sun illuminated her deep brown skin, her dark, expressive eyes absorbing everything around her with quiet intensity. Her uniform was immaculate, her posture poised, yet a spark of rebellion simmered beneath the surface. She had a mind that questioned, a heart that felt too deeply, and a soul that longed for something beyond the well-manicured corridors of Springfield Academy. Inside the senior literature classroom, students settled into their seats. A low murmur of anticipation spread across the room. Today, a new teacher was taking over. The door swung open, and all movement ceased. Mr. Kene, known as Mr. Kene, stepped inside. His confident strides echoed against the tiled floor as he reached the front of the classroom. 28, sharp-eyed and composed, he commanded attention without effort. His neatly trimmed beard and well-pressed white shirt, tucked into black trousers, added to his air of quiet authority. He set his books down and surveyed the class. "Good afternoon, class." A unified response followed. "Good afternoon, sir." "Afternoon." His gaze traveled across the room before briefly meeting Adaora's. A fleeting moment passed between them, something unreadable yet distinct. Dismissing the thought, he turned to the chalkboard, writing in bold letters, "The power of words, Achebe and Soyinka." Who can tell me why words are more powerful than swords? A hush fell over the room. Students exchanged glances, uncertain of how to answer. Then a voice, steady and self-assured, broke the silence. Because words don't just wound, they stay. They live inside people long after swords have been put away. All eyes turned to Adaora. A murmur of approval rippled through the class. Mr. Kene tilted his head slightly, a small smile forming. Excellent response. As the lesson progressed, Adaora remained keenly aware of Mr. Kene's presence. There was something different about him. His passion for literature was undeniable, but there was also an air of careful distance. By the time the bell rang, ending the period, he gathered his books without a second glance. Yet, as he walked down the hallway, he found himself thinking about her words, about the way she had spoken, as if she understood something deeper than the rest. And so it began. The unspoken connection between teacher and student, a line neither had any intention of crossing. The next day, The senior literature class settled into their seats as Mr. Kene entered. The previous night, he had revisited Adaora's response, wondering why it had stayed with him. He had encountered bright students before, but there was something striking about her way with words. Today, he announced, we'll explore the weight of words in history and literature. He wrote on the board, words that shape nations. Scanning the class, his eyes inevitably landed on Adaora. She was watching him again, her pen tapping against her notebook. Let's begin, he continued. Who can tell me how Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech changed history? Hands shot up, but before he could pick a student, Adaora spoke. It did more than inspire. It challenged an entire nation's conscience. It made injustice impossible to ignore. A slow nod. Exactly. Words have the power to change the world. The discussion deepened, and Adaora found herself drawn further into the lesson. Beyond the books and the analysis, something unspoken lingered. A quiet awareness neither dared to acknowledge. After class, she waited until the last student had left before approaching his desk. Sir? He looked up. Yes, Adaora? She hesitated, then held out a book. I thought you might like this. It's my favorite. He glanced at the title, Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. A slow smile formed. I'll read it. Their fingers brushed as he took the book, a brief touch that neither expected to feel as deeply as they did. Neither spoke of it, but something had changed. The line between teacher and student had grown thinner. Outside, Chiamaka, Adaora's longtime rival, watched from the hallway, suspicion flickering in her eyes. That evening, in his dimly lit apartment, Mr. Kene flipped through the pages of Purple Hibiscus. The margins were filled with tiny scribbles, Adaora's notes. He traced one absent-mindedly, his mind drifting to the brief touch they had shared earlier. It had been nothing. It had to be nothing. The next morning, Adaora arrived early, already seated when Mr. Kene entered. Her gaze locked onto him, as if searching for an answer to a question neither of them had spoken aloud. He cleared his throat. Today, we discuss the duality of human nature in literature. The lesson began, but the tension between them was impossible to ignore. Every glance, every unintentional brush of proximity made the air thick with something unspoken. After class, as she packed her books, Mr. Kene hesitated before calling her name. Adaora. She turned. He held up the book. Your notes. They're insightful. A slow smile spread across her lips. I hoped you'd think so. And just like that, the distance between them shrank a little more. A cool breeze swept through the corridors of Springfield Academy as students packed up for the day. The air held a quiet tension, the kind that comes when words remain unspoken for too long. Adaora moved slowly toward the library, her thoughts a tangled mess. She wasn't looking for a book. She was waiting. Mr. Kene had noticed her lingering there in the past few days. He told himself it was harmless, that she simply enjoyed reading. But a quieter voice inside wondered if she was waiting for him. Minutes later, as if drawn by an invisible force, he stepped inside. His white shirt was slightly wrinkled after a long day of teaching. Their eyes met across the quiet space, and for a second, neither spoke. "Still here?" he asked, his voice careful. Adaora smiled faintly. "I could say the same about you." He hesitated before glancing at the book in her hands. Wole Soyinka's "The Man Died." He nodded approvingly. "A powerful read." She held it up. "It reminds me of what you said in class about literature mirroring life." Mr. Kene exhaled softly. "And what do you think this book mirrors?" "The cost of speaking the truth." He studied her for a moment. "And are you willing to pay that cost?" A smirk played at her lips. "That depends on what truth I'm telling." A silence stretched between them, weighted with something neither of them wanted to name. "Sir," Adaora finally said, "do you think people can control what they feel?" His jaw tightened slightly. The question was dangerous. He looked away, pretending to scan the bookshelves. "Feelings are inevitable, but actions are choices." She hesitated at the door, fingers grazing the wooden frame. Without turning around, she whispered, "Good night, sir." As she disappeared down the hallway, Mr. Kene ran a hand over his face. A line had been drawn between them. Tonight, it had blurred just a little more. The next morning, the hallways buzzed with energy, but Adaora moved slower than usual. The previous night's conversation with Mr. Kene lingered in her mind, leaving her unsettled. As she reached her locker, Chiamaka leaned against the row beside hers, arms crossed. A knowing glint flickered in her sharp eyes. "You should be careful, Adaora." Adaora raised an eyebrow. "Careful about what?" Chiamaka smirked. "People are starting to notice how often you're with Mr. Kene." Adaora felt her stomach tighten, but masked it with an indifferent shrug. "He's my teacher. I enjoy literature." "Maybe, but others might see something else. And you know how quickly rumors spread." Adaora shut her locker firmly and turned to face Chiamaka fully. "If you have something to say it." Chiamaka laughed softly, shaking her head. "Just looking out for you." But the warning had been given, and Adaora knew that trouble was only beginning. That evening, rain poured heavily, drumming against the library windows. Adaora had stayed back to finish an essay, but her thoughts kept drifting. She wasn't alone. Mr. Kene sat at a nearby table, correcting papers. The storm outside made the room feel smaller, more intimate. Every now and then, their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. Then it happened. As Adaora got up to leave, she miscalculated a step and bumped into the desk, sending her books tumbling to the floor. Mr. Kene was at her side instantly, bending down to help her gather them. Their hands touched. It should have been nothing, but neither of them pulled away. For a fraction of a second, time stood still. Then, as if reality had snapped back into place, Mr. Kene jerked his hand away. "You should go," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Adaora swallowed hard, nodded, and hurried toward the door. But just before she stepped out, she turned back, her eyes filled with something unreadable. So was his. Unbeknownst to them, Chiamaka had been watching. From the shadows near the doorway, she had seen it all, and she had captured it on her phone. The next morning, the whispers had begun before Adaora even stepped foot into the classroom. By the time she entered, the stares were unavoidable. Students huddled in groups, whispering, giggling, and throwing her pointed looks. Her stomach dropped. Across the room, Chiamaka smirked as she scrolled through her phone. Then came the text message, sent to the entire class. A blurry photo. Mr. Kene and Adaora, too close. A caption beneath it. The teacher's pet has a new kind of lesson. The world tilted. Murmurs grew louder. Chiamaka, standing smugly in the corner, gave Adaora a slow, mocking wave. The damage was done, and soon it would reach the ears of the entire school. The principal's office was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock. Adaora sat stiffly in a wooden chair, her hands clenched in her lap. Across from her, the principal adjusted her glasses, peering over them with an expression of disappointment and disbelief. Mr. Kene stood to the side, his jaw tight, his hands clasped behind his back. The evidence against them was damning. The blurry photo, the whispered rumors, the suspicious glances. "Explain this to me." The principal's voice was low, controlled. Adaora swallowed hard. "It's not what they think." "And what do they think?" Her mouth went dry. Nothing she said would sound like the truth. Mr. Kene finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "This is being blown out of proportion. I am her teacher. She is my student. That is all." The principal exhaled deeply. "Mr. Kene, you're an excellent teacher. But do you realize the weight of these accusations?" He nodded. "I do." Her gaze shifted to Adaora. "And you? Do you understand what you've gotten yourself into?" Adaora nodded, unable to meet her gaze. The principal sighed. "For now, Mr. Kene, you are suspended until further notice. Adaora, your parents have been informed." Her heart plummeted. Her parents. As they were dismissed, Mr. Kene cast her a fleeting glance. A silent message passed between them. This was only the beginning. Adaora sat in the back seat of her father's car, her mother's voice a sharp blade slicing through the silence. "You have disgraced this family." Her mother's words carried fury, but beneath them, Adaora heard something else. Fear. Her father, usually the quieter one, spoke in a measured tone. "Then tell us what really happened." Adaora opened her mouth, then closed it. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Her mother shook her head. "You are being withdrawn from Springfield Academy immediately." Adaora's breath hitched. "No, it's final." Tears burned her eyes. Her school, her friends, Mr. Kene, it was all being ripped away. When they arrived home, her father handed her a letter and walked away without another word. Her mother followed, muttering under her breath. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the paper. It was an official withdrawal notice. Mr. Kene sat in his empty classroom, staring at the desk where Adaora once sat. The school had wasted no time in erasing his presence. A knock startled him. He turned to find Adaora standing there, her eyes red from crying. "I wanted to say goodbye," she whispered. He studied her, his heart heavy. "I'm so sorry, Adaora." She stepped forward. "Will I ever see you again?" A slow exhale. "I don't know." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I never meant for this to happen." "I know." A long silence stretched between them. Then, with one final look, Adaora turned and walked away. And this time, Mr. Kene let her go. The house felt smaller, its walls closing in. Adaora's mother barely spoke to her, and her father buried himself in work. Even her siblings kept their distance. The once lively home now felt like a cage. She sat by her bedroom window, staring blankly outside. Her thoughts looped endlessly. Her school, her friends, Mr. Kene. The past clung to her, refusing to let go. Under her pillow, she kept a folded piece of paper. The last note she had written before her phone was taken away. "I wish things were different." But things weren't different. And they never would be. Far from the walls of Springfield Academy, Mr. Kene sat in his dimly lit apartment, the weight of disgrace pressing heavily on him. The world outside carried on, but his had stopped the moment he walked out of that school for the last time. His phone rang. His older brother, Ebuka. "You look like hell," Ebuka said when he arrived, stepping inside. Mr. Kene forced a smirk. "Good to see you too." They sat in silence before Ebuka finally spoke. "What now?" Mr. Kene exhaled heavily. "I don't know." Ebuka leaned forward. "Then figure it out. Don't let this be the end of you." But was there a way forward? Mr. Kene wasn't sure anymore. Late at night, Adaora sat at her desk, pen in hand, a blank page before her. She had so much to say, but no way to say it. After what felt like hours, she finally began to write. "Dear Mr. Kene, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if you'd want to, but I need to say it, need to let it out before it suffocates me. I never meant to ruin you. I never meant for any of this to happen. I hope you find peace. I hope you find happiness, even if it's away from here." She stared at the letter for a long time before folding it neatly and tucking it away in her drawer. It would never be sent, but at least for a moment she felt lighter. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the silence in the house, though still heavy, was no longer suffocating. One evening, her father called her into his study. She braced for another lecture, but his expression was softer than before. "We've enrolled you in another school." Her heart clenched. "Springfield was my home." Her father sighed. "Not anymore." She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but she had no fight left in her. Maybe a fresh start was what she needed. Maybe, just maybe, life wasn't over yet. That night, she packed her books. Among them was a journal she had never used. On the first page, she wrote a single line. "Every ending is just the start of another story." She closed the book, exhaling. Maybe this wasn't the end after all. The first day at her new school was a blur of unfamiliar faces and half-hearted introductions. Nothing felt the same. At lunchtime, she sat alone, picking at her food. She missed the old routine, the comfort of familiarity. She missed the one person who had made her feel understood. But he was gone, and she was alone. One afternoon, as she walked through the library, she caught sight of a familiar book, Purple Hibiscus. She ran her fingers over its spine, remembering the day she had given Mr. Kene a copy. A lump formed in her throat. Could he still have it? She sighed and pulled out the book, retreating to a quiet corner. Maybe, just maybe, she could find solace in literature once more. Months passed, and the weight of the past slowly lessened its grip on Adaora. She had built a routine at her new school, even made a few friends. Some days were easier than others. Other days, she still thought of Springfield Academy, of the world she had lost, and of Mr. Kene. One evening, she found herself walking through a local bookstore, running her fingers along the spines of novels she had already read. The familiar scent of aged paper filled her nostrils, bringing a wave of nostalgia. She turned the corner and froze. There, standing in the non-fiction section, was Mr. Kene. Her breath caught in her throat. He looked different, thinner, older, wearier. But it was him. And as if sensing her presence, he turned. Their eyes met. Time collapsed between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then softly, Mr. Kene said, "Adaora." Her name on his lips sent a wave of emotions crashing over her. She had thought of this moment so many times, imagined all the things she would say. But now, standing here in front of him, words failed her. She managed a small nod, her throat too tight to form words. He hesitated, then gave a small, almost nervous smile. "It's been a while." She swallowed and nodded again. "Yes, it has." And just like that, the past they had buried resurfaced, demanding to be acknowledged. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times, but now, standing in front of him, everything she had planned to say faded. How have you been?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, adjusting. Silence stretched between them, thick with everything they weren't saying. "I never got to apologize," she said suddenly, "for everything." His expression softened. "There's nothing to apologize for, Adaora." She shook her head. "There is. You lost everything because of me." Mr. Kene exhaled slowly. "No. I lost everything because of circumstances, because of a world quick to judge." She swallowed hard. "Did you ever hate me?" His answer was immediate. "Never." For the first time in a long while, something inside her began to heal. They left the bookstore and walked along the quiet street, words coming easier now. He told her about his new life, his new students, the way he had found purpose again. He spoke of his village, of the warmth of the small school where he now taught, of the children who reminded him why he had chosen this path in the first place. "I thought of reaching out," he admitted, "but I didn't know if I should." "I thought of you too," Adaora confessed. "Every day." They stopped walking. The air between them was thick with things neither could say. "I think," Mr. Kene began carefully, "I think we were meant to meet, but not to stay." Adaora blinked back tears. "I know." It was painful, but it was true. Not all stories needed a sequel. As they continued walking, the conversation shifted. They spoke of books, of literature, of the ideas they had once debated in the classroom. It felt normal, almost like before. But beneath it all, they both knew this was different. This was goodbye. "I hope you find happiness," Adaora said softly. "Real happiness." Mr. Kene met her gaze, his eyes filled with something she couldn't quite name. "And I hope you never stop questioning the world." She smiled. "I won't." As they reached a quiet corner, they both knew the moment had arrived. The past had been acknowledged, forgiveness exchanged, but the future called them in different directions. Mr. Kene looked at her with a small, sad smile. "You'll do great things, Adaora." She smiled back. "So will you." A soft breeze passed between them, carrying the remnants of what once was. Then, without another word, they turned away from each other. Adaora walked forward, toward a future that was entirely her own, and this time, she did not look back. The streets blurred in front of her as she moved forward, step by step, with the quiet acceptance that some things were never meant to last. But that didn't mean they weren't important. That didn't mean they hadn't shaped her. She reached home, her heart strangely light. She sat at her desk, pulled out her journal and wrote, "Some endings are just beginnings in disguise." And for the first time in a long while, she believed it. Time had a way of healing even the deepest wounds. Adaora excelled in her studies, found new friendships, and built a future she could be proud of. She still kept purple hibiscus on her shelf. She still thought of Mr. Kene from time to time, but she no longer needed to look back. One evening, as she flipped through her journal, she found an old entry, the one where she had written about sending the letter. She smiled and picked up her pen. "Maybe I never needed to send it. Maybe I just needed to write it." She closed the journal, feeling lighter than she had in months. Mr. Kene stood in front of his classroom, watching his students with pride. He had once believed his teaching career was over, but life had given him a second chance. He picked up a piece of chalk and wrote on the board, "Every story teaches a lesson. Some lessons we expect, others we never see coming." He turned to his students. "Who can tell me what this means?" A hand shot up. He nodded, smiling as a student spoke. And just like that, the lesson continued. As the school day ended, He walked home through the dusty village road, reflecting on how much had changed. He had once thought his story had ended, but perhaps it had only just begun. And maybe, somewhere out there, Adaora was thinking the same thing. Adaora sat by the window, the gentle evening breeze caressing her face. She had come a long way, from a confused girl weighed down by the past to a young woman standing firmly in her own future. Life had taught her painful but necessary lessons, and she had learned them well. As she flipped through her journal, she realized how much she had changed. The words on the pages told the story of a girl who had been broken, who had struggled, but who had also risen. She thought of Mr. Kene and wondered if he had found his own peace. She hoped he had. The past no longer had a hold on her. She was free. Far away, Mr. Kene sat at his desk, staring at a blank piece of paper. He had tried to write many letters to Adaora, but had never sent them. Each one had ended up discarded, unfinished. Tonight, however, he picked up his pen and wrote, "Dear Adaora, I hope you are well. I hope life is kind to you. I hope you have found happiness." He paused, then smiled slightly. Some stories end sooner than we wish, but that doesn't make them any less important. Thank you for being part of mine. He folded the letter and placed it inside purple hibiscus, right next to hers. It would never be sent. But like hers, it didn't need to be. Adaora received an acceptance letter to her dream university. As she held it in her hands, excitement bubbled within her. This was it. A new beginning. She packed her bags, ready to embark on a new chapter. She placed purple hibiscus inside her suitcase, a quiet reminder of the past that had shaped her. As she took one last look at her childhood room, she smiled. She was ready for the future. Mr. Kene stood at the front of his classroom, looking at his students. He had given them an assignment: write about a moment that changed them. As they scribbled away, he thought about his own moment, the one that had led him here. He had once lost everything, but life had found a way to rebuild him. He picked up a piece of chalk and wrote on the board, "Every ending is just another story waiting to be told." He turned back to his students. "That's the thing about life," he said. "It never truly stops teaching." As the bell rang, he smiled. He had finally found his peace. This is how Adaora's and Mr. Kene's paths finally reached their destinations. Some stories are painful, some lessons are hard, but in the end, growth is inevitable. If you enjoyed this story and want more captivating tales filled with suspense, emotion, and powerful lessons, subscribe to Timeless Origins so you never miss another incredible story. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep exploring the stories that shape us all.